The brick wall had no door. Not one wide enough. Not one tall enough. Henry Ford had spent 2 years building the car in the little shed behind his house on Bagley Avenue. He was 32 years old. He had never broken a wall in his life. He had built it in the dark with a lamp on a nail and his wife Clara sitting nearby reading, because she said she didn't mind the noise and he believed her. Some nights she fell asleep in the chair before he stopped working. He covered her with a coat and kept going. The neighbors' lights were off by 9. It stayed on until 2. The shed was 10 feet wide. The parts came in through the door one at a time. He had never once measured what would need to come back out. Now the car was finished and the door was 8 inches too narrow. He could see it sitting there. 4 bicycle wheels. A tiller for steering. A buggy seat wide enough for 2. The engine, 2 cylinders bored from sections of exhaust pipe, bolted to the frame. It was May 1896. The car had never moved under its own power. He didn't measure the doorway again. He found an axe. He swung it into the brick. Again. Again. The wall came down in pieces. Bricks scattered across the alley floor. Dust hung in the cold air like smoke. Mrs. Ford stood at the back door holding an umbrella. It was raining. He turned the flywheel. The engine coughed once and caught. He climbed onto the saddle and pulled the lever. The car moved. Across the cobblestones, out through the hole in the wall, past the pile of bricks he had just made, out onto Grand River Avenue in the rain. Moving through Detroit under its own power, no horse, no rails. The shed stays the same size. The doorway stays the same width. You have been waiting for the door to get wider. It won't. The job that fit when you took it and stopped fitting somewhere in the 3rd year. The relationship designed for the person you were before you changed. The plan you made at 22 that you are still executing at 38. Ford didn't ask permission. He didn't file a permit. He didn't call a contractor to give him a quote on widening the opening. He didn't write to his landlord explaining that the vehicle he had built in the shed was now wider than the exit and requesting formal approval to modify the structure. He picked up an axe. His neighbors had opinions. They heard the hammering at odd hours. Some of them knocked on the door of the shed and asked what was happening in there. He answered politely and went back to work. They stopped knocking eventually. They started talking instead. They saw the strange carriage with no horse sitting in pieces in the alley. They said the young Ford boy had lost his mind. His father thought he was a fool for leaving Edison. A good job. Steady pay. A future that could be predicted. William Ford had farmed the same land in Dearborn for 30 years and could not understand why a man would walk away from a salary to sit in a shed at night building something no one had asked for. The partners from his first 2 failed companies thought he was stubborn, too slow, too obsessed with making it exactly right. Everyone had a theory about the wall. None of them had built anything that needed to get through it. You've been told to wait, to be patient. He drove the car down Grand River Avenue to Washington Boulevard. The engine sputtered on the wet cobblestones. A spring cracked. A nut dropped somewhere onto the road behind him. He stopped the car, walked back to the Edison dynamo room and made a replacement part on the lathe. Then he drove home in the rain. He had no headlights. He had brought a friend named Jim Bishop to ride alongside on a bicycle, holding a lamp out in front of the car so Ford could see the road. Bishop pedaled hard to keep up. The car moved faster than a bicycle was meant to go. Bishop's lamp swung in the dark. It was 4 a.m. before they got back to Bagley Avenue. Clara was awake. She had not gone to bed. She handed him a cup of coffee and looked at the mud on his shoes and did not ask any questions. He drank it standing up. The cup was still warm. The next morning he hired 2 bricklayers to repair the wall. He owed his landlord a wall and he paid it. The landlord came to collect the rent and found the wreckage instead. What did you do it for? I had to get my car out to see if it would run. The landlord looked at the hole. He looked at the car sitting in the alley. He stood there a moment. Say, he said, if those fellows put the wall back up, how are you going to get your car out again? Tell them to leave that opening. Put on swinging doors. That will let you in and out. The first garage doors were built. The landlord who came to collect the rent left having helped design a door. The job that stopped fitting. The city that has been too small since the second year. The version of yourself you keep performing for people who knew you before you changed. Ford was 32. He had started 2 companies and watched both of them fail. He had a wife who believed in him and a son who was 3 years old and a car with no brakes, no reverse, and a doorway that was 8 inches too narrow. He waited until the car was finished. Then he picked up an axe. He had never broken a wall before in his life, because the car was finished and the wall was in the way. You have been standing there. The wall is the same wall it was 6 months ago, a year ago. It has not grown stronger. It has not grown taller. You have been walking past it every morning and adding another reason to the list of reasons. Today is not the day. Today is the day. Tomorrow morning, find one thing you have been treating as permanent. Not the large one, the small one. The rule you follow that no one enforces anymore. The assumption you made once and never tested again. The wall you walk around every morning on the way to doing something else. Break it. Send the email you decided you were not allowed to send. Make the call you put off because the timing was never right. Take the first step on the thing you have been describing as impossible for long enough that you have started to believe it. Register the domain. Book the first session. Submit the application. Put the first sentence of the thing on a page and save it somewhere you will find it tomorrow morning. You don't need to finish it today. You need to move it. Ford drove the quadricycle 4 miles before the spring cracked. 4 miles was enough. 4 miles was proof. You don't need the whole road tonight. You need 4 miles and a lamp and someone willing to pedal alongside you in the rain. Ford didn't finish the car that night. The spring cracked on Grand River Avenue and he walked back to the lathe and made a new part in the dark. Then he got back in and kept going. The wall is not the problem. The problem is the list of reasons you wrote while standing in front of it. Look at your wall. Pick up the axe. I swing first and clean up after. I swing first and clean up after. I swing first and clean up after.